It was late, almost 9:30 p.m., and he wasn't expecting anyone. When he opened the door, he saw two young women standing in the hallway, both holding backpacks, both looking nervous. One of them spoke first, her voice shaky but determined. We need the room for $500, she said. Please. Tonight if possible. Mark froze. He wasn't renting out the room anymore. He had considered it months ago when money was tight, but after Ethan started struggling in school, he decided he needed the space for him. Hearing their desperate request, he didn't know how to respond. But he noticed their tired eyes, the way they kept glancing at each other for courage, and suddenly something inside him softened. Before we continue, if you enjoy emotional and inspiring stories like this, make sure to subscribe, like, and comment on the channel Kindness Tales. Your support helps us bring more heartwarming stories to life. Now, let's go back to that night. Mark opened the door wider and invited the two women inside. Their clothes were rumpled. One of them, Anna, was a college freshman, the other, Sophia, was a year older. They explained that they had been renting a room nearby, but the landlord unexpectedly raised the rent without warning. They couldn't afford it. They had no family in the area and no place to sleep. Mark listened quietly. Ethan peeked from behind him, rubbing his sleepy eyes and leaning against his father's leg. Mark gently placed a hand on his son's head and told him to wait in his room. When Ethan walked away, Mark looked back at the young women. They were scared, but they were trying to stay respectful, hopeful, and strong. I get it, Mark finally said. I really do. But the room was supposed to be for my son. I turned down other renters. I wasn't planning to list it again. He expected them to argue or beg. Instead, they both nodded, accepting his answer with surprising dignity. Anna wiped a tear and said, "We understand. Thank you for listening. We'll try to figure something out." They started collecting their backpacks to leave. In that moment, something hit Mark hard. He remembered nights when he and Ethan had nowhere to go after his divorce. He remembered sleeping in his car, trying to hide his fear so his son wouldn't see it. He remembered how humiliating it felt to ask for help. And he remembered the one kind stranger who had saved him during his darkest moment, an older man who had offered him a warm place to stay without asking for anything in return. Mark stepped forward. "Wait," he said softly. The young women turned around. I can't take your money," he said. "But you can stay here for the night. Maybe a few days while you figure things out." They stared at him, confused. "You mean, for free?" Mark nodded. "For free." The shock on their faces was almost heartbreaking. Suddenly, Anna burst into tears, not loud, but the silent kind where the shoulders shake. Sophia put an arm around her, whispering something in Spanish that Mark couldn't understand, but he didn't need to. He could feel their relief. He showed them the guest room. It wasn't fancy, but it was warm and clean. They kept thanking him again and again. Mark told them to get some rest. The next morning, he woke early to make breakfast for Ethan before school. When he entered the kitchen, he found the girls there, whispering quietly as they washed dishes that weren't even theirs. They had made scrambled eggs and toast for everyone. "You didn't have to do that," Mark told them. "We wanted to," Sophia said with a small smile. "It's the least we can do." For the next few days, the house felt different, livelier. Ethan loved talking to them, and they helped him with his homework. Mark learned that both girls were studying nursing and worked part-time jobs to cover tuition. They had no family nearby, and everything they owned fit in their backpacks. One evening, as Mark was cleaning up the living room, he overheard the girls talking worriedly in the guest room. They were whispering about how they didn't want to burden him and how they needed to find a job that paid more, maybe even drop out for a semester. Mark quietly stepped away so they wouldn't know he had heard. But their words weighed on him. Later that night, after Ethan was asleep, Mark knocked gently on their door. When they opened it, he spoke carefully, not wanting to overwhelm them. "I've been thinking," he said. "If you both want, you can stay here for a while. Not forever, just until you get stable. I won't charge you rent. Just help around the house, keep Ethan company sometimes. That's enough." Their eyes widened in disbelief. Anna covered her mouth with her hands. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. They hugged each other tightly before hugging Mark, thanking him over and over. Mark wasn't used to people showing him that kind of emotion, but he didn't mind. In fact, it felt good. Weeks passed, and a warm rhythm filled the home. The girls cooked meals, helped Ethan practice reading, and sometimes all four of them would watch movies together on weekends. Mark discovered that he laughed more, smiled more, and felt less alone. One afternoon, Ethan came home from school holding a drawing. "Daddy," he said excitedly, "look. This is our family." He showed a picture of 5 stick figures: Mark, Ethan, Anna, Sophia, and even their little cat from their previous apartment, which they brought over once they found a pet-friendly arrangement. Mark's throat tightened. He didn't expect them to become part of his life. But they did. Months later, the girls found a small apartment near campus. They came to Mark with the news gently, almost apologetically. "We're not leaving your life," Sophia said. "Just moving to our own space." On their last night in the house, they made dinner together, a big meal with music playing in the background. After eating, they handed Mark a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. "You gave us a home when we had nothing. You showed us kindness we'll never forget. You saved more than our semester, you saved our hope. We will carry your kindness with us for the rest of our lives." Mark didn't know what to say. He hugged them both tightly, his eyes burning with unshed tears. After they left, he looked around the quiet house. It felt emptier, but also fuller somehow, full of memories, laughter, and the reminder that kindness doesn't just help others, it heals the giver too. And that night, as he tucked Ethan into bed, his son whispered, "I miss them already." Mark smiled gently and kissed his forehead. "Me too, buddy. But kindness always comes back around." A soft warmth filled the room. Mark felt grateful that he opened the door that night, grateful that he listened to his heart, and grateful that kindness had given them all a new beginning. Because sometimes, the smallest gesture can change more lives than we realize. And sometimes, one act of kindness becomes a story that spreads far beyond the moment it was given, encouraging others to open their hearts too. So remember, kindness is never wasted. It echoes. It grows. And it returns when we need it most.